Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 45 of Humanity Rising. Every day since the 22nd of May, between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time, we've created a 2-hour open space so that people from all over the world can come together and share their experiences and their anguish at what they're having to navigate as we all move through this pandemic of unprecedented proportions. And more fundamentally, an opportunity for all of us to come together to take counsel as to how we can increase our strategic effectiveness. And I'm very excited today because we've been getting some extremely good news. We're going to be sending a letter out to all of you in just a few days, but we're now broadcasting through our partners, live TV, and a range of other strategic partners to 10 to 15,000 people a day. So there's thousands of people watching this program right now. And we want to encourage all of you, either as individuals or as organizations, to join this effort and to live stream our sessions on Facebook or any other platform that you may have. We're also getting requests from people to develop local Humanity Rising groups in local languages and in local communities to deepen the sense of community and to start taking on strategic initiatives. One of the most exciting is actually happening in Holland, where a woman, Jolanda Eigenstein, who's been participating in the Humanity Rising sessions, has taken the initiative to set up a Holland Rising and to start a campaign in the Netherlands to emulate the leadership that Amsterdam City has taken in announcing that in the post-pandemic world, Amsterdam is going to embrace donut economics. That puts human well-being right in the center of that donut, so that the inner circle is about human well-being and the outer circle is about ecological systems and ecological constraints. How do we begin to prioritize an abundant, thriving, resilient, sustainable community in alignment with natural systems? And in talking with her today, I found out that there are now over 400 cities around the world that have been in touch with Amsterdam and want to start embracing donut economics. So any of you out there that are interested in setting up Humanity Rising local chapters or wanting to explore how your community, whether as a family or a neighborhood or an organization or a city or a town or a country, can embrace human well-being within the context of ecological systems and constraints, please be in touch with us. And again, we'll be sending out a letter to that effect, but it's been very gratifying, I have to tell you, to have in the middle of the pandemic, if you can remember back to March, when everybody was hunkered down, nobody knew what was going to happen. And all of a sudden the impulse came, why don't we do something? Ubiquity University has a very powerful brand that our stand is our brand. We've taken a stand on climate change. Why don't we could take a stand on the pandemic? And let's create a daily opportunity for people all over the world to come together. Well, we've done that. And at first we didn't know whether it was going to be a swan dive or a belly flop. But I have to tell you, it's been deeply, deeply gratifying to see the numbers of people that are now live streaming with us, wanting to set up local groups, and everything that we're doing is deepening and expanding and the schedule. You know, we have over 400 organizations now that have partnered. And if each one of you would live stream and think about local Humanity Rising chapters, we could start reaching millions. We're supporting the Donut Economics Initiative, and heard just yesterday that Copenhagen, another major city, is embracing donut economics. There's an initiative in Costa Rica. So there's a lot happening. And it's very important as the indicators get worse and worse, at the center of which is runaway climate change, for people of goodwill to come together in the spirit of radical collaboration, to do everything we can to turn this thing around. And my confidence and my optimism is growing day by day. So it's within that context that I want to spend a moment framing what is in some ways a crucially important nexus between the human and animal worlds to come. You know, there's now 1 million plant and animal, insect, fish species under direct threat of extinction. Scientists say that, in fact, we're accelerating the extinction rate so radically that we've now entered into the 6th great extinction in the history of planet Earth. Right now, the extinction rate is between 500 and 1,000 times normal. And if current trends continue, it'll be reaching 10,000 times normal, exclusively because of human degradation of the environment all over the world. And these species that are going extinct mean something. They're not just statistics. That's what we're going to be delving into today. If you look at almost every ancient society, they had totem animals: the bear, the eagle, the beaver, the lion, the buffalo, the elephant, the tiger, that had particular resonance with that society. The shamans, the most ancient of the seers, were those individuals in the tribe that could speak both the language of the tribe and the language of nature, and to ensure that the messages coming from the animals, the totem animals, and the larger ecofield were communicated to the tribe, because they understood that it was the relationship between the human and other sentient beings through the fulcrum of 1 or 2 specific species that were in a particular resonance that was the key to human health, human abundance, and prosperity. Today, we're going to be looking at the white lion, one of those extraordinary species that has had for thousands of years a very mystical, profound, synergetic relationship with the human species, something recognized by the ancient Egyptians thousands of years ago. Like many species, they were almost extinct, until a woman that I'm very proud and honored to introduce, Linda Tucker, woke up out of her modernity and realized that the most important thing in the world for her was to save the white lions. And this woman has done so and unearthed something that had been lost. And that is the realization that is not only a resonance between the white lions and the human, but that the white lions and the humans have a very deep, specific destiny that if we could only understand it and embrace it would be the key to human survival at this critical time. So Linda, who I've known for many years and embraced as a sister and a colleague and a mentor and a friend, I want to introduce you to the community now and take it away.
Oh, Jim, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. I'm just going to catch the last sun for everyone. Do you see that's the last sun over Africa? And we have a few minutes as it sets, but we know that the sun is rising somewhere on the globe. And in fact, the sun never sets. We should remember that in this time, you know, the darkest hour, as it were. The sun is always with us and the principles of the sun. And the white lions who are the manifestation of the sun, if you can imagine an animal taking form who embodies the sun. When I speak and there are children in the audience, I always keep them quiet by giving them a huge piece of paper to draw a white lion, and they will draw what looks like a sun. And I say, well, is that a lion or is it the sun? And they say, no, it's the sun. Oh no, it's a lion. Oh, it's the sun. The sun and the lion have this incredible relationship, and the white lion is believed to be the child of the sun who has manifested in our times with a special mission from the higher orders to, well, as the greatest blessing and the final warning for humanity. But I focus on the greatest blessing because they embody the opportunity for enlightened leadership that is being offered to us in this time of crisis. And that is my life's work with the lions who are roaming these lands with us. We might even hear them roar before we've completed our time together. I really want to thank you, all of you from around the planet, for joining us and creating the space to hear nature, truly to hear the message from nature, because nature, the lions roar, but all of nature is calling out to us through one heart to wake up to our role of being part of this incredible ecosystem. There is no logic unless it is ecological. We are being illogical and irrational unless we are founding our thinking on ecological principles, because there is only one ending to that story if we dissociate ourselves from ecology. And I call that the eco-logic, the echo of the ecosystem. So before we continue, I'd like to just very briefly lay out for you how our time together is going to look. Normally in a webinar, I would begin with a meditation to ground us. But because the sun is setting and I'm going to be in the dark pretty soon, what I did was I prepared a meditation in the morning. And guess what? The lions started roaring while I was preparing the meditation for humanity rising. Their voice came into our meditation. So that's how we're going to end. It is pre-prepared, but it was prepared for humanity rising, and the lions gave their voice to it. So we'll end that way. For now, I'm going to be handing you over to Maurice Fernandez in a moment, a very dear friend, and one of the world's leading astrologers. He is the president of OPA, the Professional Astrologers Association of the World. I'll be handing over to him in a moment, because he is a specialist at the astrology of the times we are in. In fact, Maurice was preparing for this over the past decade and preparing the Leadership Academy specifically for the times we're in. I will also share a little bit about my story for those of you who don't know how my heart was activated by the lions, and how I believe that is an invitation for everyone in our times to reconnect our heart with the core issues. And that indeed is the key to the rise of the new leadership. And in that process, I'll be referring to two lion traditions that go back all the way to prehistory. The one that's dominated is the one that has led to consumerism. But there is another tradition that is being offered to us at this time, and that is the invitation to change the leadership paradigm completely. And that is the invitation from the white lions, the king of animals at this time. So that is the program today. Let me go back to the introduction to my dear friend, Maurice Fernandez. So Maurice, as I mentioned to you, is a leading evolutionary astrologer. And what that means really is that he's looking at the evolution of humanity through the ages, not only the present moment. We carry an ancestry that links us back to a contract we made with this planet when humanity first took up the role of governance. Bearing in mind that the apex animal in creation is the lion, and the lion holds the flame of governance through the night. The lion is a nocturnal predator, so the lion holds light in the darkness. So the lions are waking up right now as the sun is setting. The role for humanity was to receive the beacon, to receive the flame from the white lions or from the lions, and carry that flame through the day as we govern during the day. Now, we know that we have not entirely achieved that mission, but this critical turning point invites the return to our original contract, and that is the key to the present and the future relationship with our planet. So importantly, Maurice Fernandez, on this day in 2012, I'm sure many of you have been aware of the various calendars that are grinding into a moment where all comes into a turning point, the moment we're in right now. But the Mayan calendar was one of those big turning points in 2012. And on this day, the 5th of July, 2012, Maurice assisted me in launching the Academy of LionHearted Leadership here in White Lion Territories. At the very same time, I was with Jim Garrison and Ubiquity University with the Wisdom Community in Chartres, France, launching the Academy of LionHearted Leadership there on this day. Why did we choose this day? Well, on this day and this day only, the sun aligns with the blue star Sirius, also known as the God star, the star of origins, the star that birthed our sun. So I'm going to be handing you over to Maurice in a moment, not only to speak about this day, which is particularly important because it's the higher octave of the 2012 5th of July that we activated all those years ago. Today, not only is the sun and the moon in alignment with Sirius, but because we're going through a lunar eclipse, sun, moon, earth, and the blue star are in alignment. And that is highly significant because it means that the force of the source flows through from heaven to earth in A-LION-MENT, which is the work of LionHearted Leadership. Maurice, over to you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I hope you can all hear me well. And indeed, these are very unique times. As Linda was describing, we have been preparing for the year 2020. And at the time, people were telling me, you know, you're an astrologer, but why do you focus on a time period that is so far ahead? We're now only in 2015 and 2012. And I wrote articles, and you can also visit my website to see more videos about the different sequence of this year, because there was a very particular alignment that occurred this year that in some ways the universe conspired to converge everything in 2020. It's crossing of many different cycles. And I just want to introduce you briefly to what is astrology and what is evolutionary astrology, because unfortunately there's so much misinformation out there and prejudice that leads to little knowledge that can be dangerous. So in a very succinct way, astrology is the study of planetary cycles. If we understand that ecological cycles affect us, we also understand that solar system cycles, and perhaps beyond that, are also completely synchronized with life on Earth. And I don't know why it is for some people so hard to understand that there may be a correlation between the cycles of the planet with the cycles on Earth, since all our calendars are actually regulated by the sun and the moon to begin with. And so we already know just from that our rhythm, our internal clock is aligned, it's synchronized with the cosmic clock of the sky. So when we look at astrology, we don't need to be psychics. We don't need to be, to have any kind of special gift, but to understand how to track cycles and to interpret them, understand what they mean. Now, astrology was part of ancient civilization, I believe, since people started to look up and see that at certain moments, when planets are rising, when planets are setting, let alone when the sun and the moon interact, that certain things were occurring on the planet and affecting not just crops and not just seasons, but also behavior, challenges and opportunities. So when we look at the cycles coming, we spoke about, the way I described it is going to be life before 2020 and life after 2020, because of the convergence of so many important alignment that I'm going to show you about. Now, I'm sorry I don't have elaborate slides to show, because what happens during eclipses is that things can be eclipsed from your life. And in this case, my computer was eclipsed. And I had a total loss just a day ago. However, I did manage to put together some slides that I would like to share with you just for some visual. Let me see. So I hope you can all see this.
Yes, you can see. That's very clear. Thank you, Maurice.
Is the panel...
And just while Maurice prepares that, everybody, we really are inviting you to be interactive. So by all means, prepare questions in the chat and we will get to them in time. So,
So
don't hesitate.
are the panelists hiding the slides, or can you see them well?
We see them fine.
Okay,
I see everything is good.
So we spoke about many different factors, and bear with me because there are some details that add up and lead to what is coming together. First of all, just a note on the eclipse. As Linda was mentioning, it is this very critical and powerful alignment between the sun, the moon, and the earth. And this happens 4 times a year, 2 solar eclipses, 2 lunar eclipses. And during eclipses, what happens is that this alignment is like opening a gate. It's like opening the code of a safe. And a portal open, like you have a secret passage, a sacred and secret passage. And during eclipses, the ego is not in charge anymore. There is something of higher order that is transmitted. And so this is why in ancient times, people knew that eclipses were critical time where kings were born and kings were dying, because the moment of separation, the moment of departure to the other realm was happening through this portal. So it is a time where things are activated very rapidly. It is beyond our control, and it can be a surprising opportunity that suddenly you get a job in Japan and you have to pack up and go. So it's instant, it's rapid, and it's something that can change your life sometimes quite radically. It is also a time, as we say, of endings. And the fact that it is now aligned with the star Sirius brings an additional significance, because the star Sirius, as you've maybe heard now briefly through Linda, but even in her book, the Sangoma Credo Mutua was speaking of Sirius as one of the stars where the white lions originated. And I've seen, through continuous research, that Sirius is immediately connected when it is highlighted in our own personal chart and destiny, or even in times like this, an immediate connection to a consciousness that is overreaching, that is global. And I've seen, because of that, many people who have this alignment, who have that gift of communicating with animals and communicating with a level of consciousness that is more subtle, that is, deeper layers. And so there is definitely ancestral knowledge that is going through this portal. And I believe, it's very auspicious to be here on this day and to be discussing these dynamics. But look at your own lives, what is happening now. This may be a moment of truth for you. This may be a moment where you're making decisions, where things happen rapidly, and don't resist it. It is larger than you. It is a time where you have to be attentive. And you may gain clarity only after the fact, because things may happen very quickly. Now, if we look back, the previous eclipse cycle was right after Christmas Day on December 26, which was exactly the time where the virus was discovered. And I know the Li Wenliang, if I'm pronouncing his name right, the doctor in Wuhan, who sounded the alarm exactly around those times between the 26th and the 30th of December 2019. Basically, it was the beginning of us becoming aware of the pandemic and the consequences, and the fact that this doesn't only affect our health, but it affects global dynamics. Now, what is so critical about 2020 is that the pandemic is a trigger, but it's not the cause. It's not the intention. The intention of 2020, and I'm going to show you a slide, there was a very critical alignment, just the second eclipse of January, around the 10th to the 12th, with this. I know you may not understand the symbols, but you see this cluster of planets in the same place, and two of them are the planet Pluto and Saturn. Now, previous times when Pluto Saturn came together was in 1914, before World War I, before Europe completely changed, in empires falling and new empires rising, whether it was the Soviet Union, whether it was the Ottoman Empire. So a time where the maps were redrawn and where leadership was recalibrated. And when we look at this, we understand it's an opportunity, but we also understand a lot is at stake. And if we are not understanding the message, we may not harness this energy properly. So it's not just about the activation, but it's also knowing what to do with it, which is the value of astrology in that context. The second time this happened, the following time this happened was in 1947, right after the Second War. And again, a time of complete redistribution of power. Europe is dismantled, and the Soviet Union and the United States are feeding on the destruction and building two new empires, which leads to the Cold War after that. So you see a lot of socio-political changes. But underneath that, what is the real message that we are now again facing? The message is the right distribution of power, which means right governance. And power is not only a visible power, as in who's the head of state. Power is the banks. Power is resources. Power is the priests and the shamans. There are different layers of power. There's intellectual power. There's financial power. So when these two planets come together, there is a redistribution of power, which means those who had it can lose it, and you can have new powers emerging. And there's a test. So it is a time also of accountability, where systems are breaking down and everything is being revealed. What is hiding behind the scene, what is misaligned, and what basically means, the balance of corruption versus integrity. Now, this leads to another cycle that is happening at the end of this year. It's a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction exactly on the solstice, which I won't get into, but the solstice is an extremely powerful time these days because it happens to intercross with the axis of the Milky Way. And there is a completely new cycle when we're shifting elements from an earth dominant influence to an air dominant influence. Now, it's very interesting because this conjunction happens in the sign of Aquarius. The planets are Saturn and Jupiter. And when Saturn and Jupiter come together, once again, there's a new social order. there is a new governance. And not only is it a Saturn-Jupiter cycle, but it's in a new element. And that happens only every 200 years. So we are likely going to see, again, the fall and the rise of leaders and a shifting of table. And it's an opportunity for us to use this constructively, because what can happen when there is so much reshuffling is that you create a vacuum of power. You know, you take away the old leaders, the obsolete systems and paradigms, but if there's nothing to step in, it can leave space for parasites. It can create more chaos. And we've seen that in Libya during the Arab Spring, where on the one hand, a revolution led to a change, but there was nothing to hold that change. And that's why knowing about this is helpful. At least, you know, the stars give us indications and we can be better informed. It is, for me, a way to really understand what the universe is intending. If there's one thing I can say about astrology and understanding these cycles and interpreting them, it's a realization that the universe is an intelligent force, that things don't happen randomly, that there is an intention behind everything, including the suffering we're going through and the uncertainty and however each one of us experiences these changes. So between now, this eclipse, and the solstice of December is going to rage. We are through a period of extreme intensity and an extreme opportunity. The iron is hot. And if we speak of enlightened leadership and we speak about lions as an inspiration, this is the time it needs to happen. This is the time where, through this portal of change, the transformation can be a positive one. Now, I'm going to speak about something of even greater amplitude happening during this time. I spoke locally, you know, about this year and how important this year is. But we are actually, you know, this year's cycle intersects with a much larger cycle. And you may have heard this in folklore, or maybe from some astrological friends, or if you've seen the movie Hair, about the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And this has been trivialized, diluted, or even idealized in a way that is perhaps misleading. So let's try to set the record straight and let's try to better understand the depth of this. First of all, I'm showing you this slide with what we call the royal stars. These are 4 stars that are actually forming a cross in the sky. And they are in the constellations of the bull, the eye of the bull, Aldebaran, which represents the east, the heart of the scorpion, exactly opposite, called Antares, Regulus, which is the heart of the lion, north, and Fomalhaut, which is associated with the constellation of Aquarius, even though it's not technically in the constellation of Aquarius, but it's receiving the waters of the Aquarius bucket, which is quenching the thirst of humanity. So these royal stars are associated with also archangels and leaders and directions. And The Persians saw them as the royal stars, and you will see many leaders, the ones you like and the one you don't like, having very strong alignments on these axes. You will also see leaders departing with these alignments. For example, Nelson Mandela passed away when the sun was aligned with Antares in early December, and so was Mandla, the king of the White Lions, the leader of the patriarch of the lineage that was returned to the sacred land, passed exactly on the same alignment, Mandla and Mandela, on this Sun Regulus alignment. So these are references we use, and you can see also Sirius listed there and Orion, even though they're not considered royal in the governance reference, it is reference to stars of origin, stars of ancestry, where souls come from and depart on this plane. Now, these stars are aligned in this cross, and the signs associated with them are Taurus, the bull, Leo, the lion, Scorpio, which is also the phoenix, and the eagle, and the snake. Now, why the snake and the eagle? What is the correlation between the snake and the eagle? The snake goes underground into the crevices of our unconscious, whereas the eagle rises to the sun. So there's a natural alchemy from snake to eagle, which is also represented by the dragon, which is a snake-eagle creature. So in prophecy, the sign of Scorpio is often not just a scorpion, but it's also an eagle and a snake. And then Aquarius, which is represented by the divine human, the angelic human, representing the higher worlds, the brain, the fact that we stand on 2 feet and reach for the sky. But the same as we look at trees, when we look at the tree growing towards the heavens, we also know that the tree grows down to the earth as deep as it rises up. It digs into the soil. So we have a natural growth both down and up, which is where the chakras, the higher chakras rise to the higher consciousness, and the lower chakra integrate into this dimension. And what is at the center of the 3 higher chakras and 3 lower chakra? It's the heart center. That's the convergence. That's the balance between heaven and earth, heart. And that is why the lion is so important, because the lion represents the heart. It represents the sun. And it represents gold, and it represents light. And only if there's integration can there be light. Because people who are too much in the higher spheres are people who don't necessarily, they talk a lot, but don't always walk it. And people who are only in the lower spheres lose perspective, and they don't understand the big picture. What am I getting at? We are now at a time of what we call a shifting of ages. There is a phenomena, an astronomical phenomena, that is called the precession of the equinoxes. And this means that the Earth rotation and gravitational pull with the sun is creating some kind of wobble. And that wobble is like a spin on an axis. And I don't have the slide to show you, unfortunately. But you can Google precession of the equinoxes and have a, some illustration. What happens during this this precession is that the Earth shifts its alignment with the Sun 1 degree every 72 years. And this is why 72 years is such a sacred number, because it's related to this clock. Every 72 years, the Earth shifts a degree. Now, if we look at a full cycle, this means 360 degrees. So for a full cycle, it takes about 25,600, I'm going to calculate that exactly. 25,920 years, and that's called the Great Year, which is a completion of all the ages. But if we look particularly at the different signs, each time the Earth changed that angle, a degree every 72 years, the sign, the constellation that rises during the spring equinox, which is the time of perfect balance, shifts 1 degree as well. And this means that it takes approximately 30 degrees per sign. There are 12 signs, 360 total degrees. So 360 divided by 12, 30 degrees per sign. Now that's an abbreviation, because in the sky, the constellations are not exactly 30 degrees equal. So this is why there are many debates about when is the Aquarius age really starting. What we will explore here is that, first of all, there's an overlap. And that's exactly where we're at. One age is fading as the other one is rising. So there's a natural transitional time. And there are activational, just like eclipses activate certain events, there are also activations of the age. And like another increment and another increment that leads to the growth of a new age. Currently, what is happening in the spring, the constellation that appears on the spring, which is the starting point in the northern hemisphere, is exactly that threshold between Pisces and Aquarius. And that's why people are waiting for the Aquarius age, which is basically saying the constellation of Aquarius is aligned with the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. But people forget, because the northern hemisphere is the most populated. They don't realize we are actually having a southern hemisphere too. And actually, all our origin, if we look archaeologically, the oldest lands are Africa and Australia, which are southern hemisphere lands. And so there's a direction there also that all the roots, all the DNA, all the coding is actually in the south and then rises to the north. So this means that if Pisces up to now was rising in the northern spring, Virgo, the opposite constellation, was rising in the southern spring. So you see these, these graphics here. The Pisces opposes the Virgo, and the Lion, the Leo, opposes the Aquarius. So as Aquarius now rises north, Leo rises south during the September equinox. Now, Pisces and Virgo, 2,000 years ago, what exactly happened with a virgin and a fish, or a fisherman? can it get more graphic that the turning of the age at the time was from Aries to Pisces, from Libra to Virgo, and it led to a complete shift in the culture of the world. Not only did Christianity emerge and Christ, which was, is symbolized by the sun, but also Buddhism emerged, Islam emerged. You had a whole shift of consciousness and a new direction for humanity and for life on Earth. What is the symbolism of Pisces and Virgo? In many ways, Pisces and Virgo reminded us to be able to transcend our earthly attachment and to recognize there is a higher truth that overreaches everything. And that's what Christ was saying, and that's what Buddha was saying. Their main messages was, don't be attached to this success or to your possessions or to your to your culture. Look at the broader picture. There is an overreaching connection, and we are not separate from one another. We are all one. The oneness is very much a Pisces Virgo theme, and that helps us transcend ourselves to understand there is a higher reality. There's a higher truth, not just my truth, not just my life, but life as one organism. And that's the beautiful message of the Pisces age. But there was also a shadow side to the Pisces age. And the shadow side of the Pisces age is that it led to a separation of spirit and flesh, spirit and matter. Because there is a whole overreaching principle and the principle of transcendence, it also led to the detachment from our bodies, the detachment from the earth, the detachment from anything that's material. And you see even today, many people who are spiritually oriented shy away from material possessions, or they become celibates. And to some extent, if we take that to an extreme, it even leads to a distorted paradigm where we sacrifice the earth because we're going to go to heaven anyway. That is part of some streams of religions that believe in the rapture. And this legitimizes almost the abuse or I will say the neglect, the plunder of earth resources, and that split between spirit and matter and integration. So with every age, there's a new lesson, and there's also a challenge and possibly a shadow side. And as we now shift, the cosmic clock is shifting, tilting. We are now moving to a new axis with Aquarius in the north and Leo in the south. What is the lesson here? And is it a coincidence? Is it completely random in this intelligent universe that right as this shift is in process and the overlap is happening, white lions are reappearing in the southern hemisphere? And I'm saying reappearing because they were spoken about in legends, and African people, had oral knowledge about kings being reincarnated as white lions, or even white lions. I remember we went to the Venda country in South Africa, which is on the border of Zimbabwe, and there was a forest there. And the guy that was there told us, you know, this forest is protected by a white lion spirit, because all the ancestral kings and queens are basically residing in this forest in spirit. And they say you need to know the password, otherwise you get lost in the forest. And we were all, yeah, sure, great. And lo and behold, you know, just as we venture in the forest, a heavy fog just came down and we couldn't see anything before us. And yet, you know, with the guide, you know, he had the password and we came with the right intention and found our way, but there was a test. So what I'm saying is the white lions were in the folklore and they were in the stories, and people spoke about them, but nobody actually saw a lion that was white until very recently, until the 20th century, where the first sightings of, I think I saw a white lion, you know, and Linda can surely share much more about that than I can. But I will just say the first actual photograph of a white lion was in 1975. And that was both a revelation and, unfortunately, it led to the misuse of what was to come. However, if we go back to our context, understanding that the white lions emerged in the southern hemisphere when the shifting of the ages happened with the Leo constellation aligning with the southern spring, we know this is no mistake. There is a higher purpose. What is it? From my perspective, from an astrological perspective, and Linda will add to that from the lion perspective, I will just say it briefly because time is running out. But think of it that it's such a synchronistic revelation that it happens to be that the Leo constellation is opposing the Aquarius, which is the human constellation. So even in the sky, humans and lions are bonded. They have a contract. They balance each other. It's not an elephant, and it's not a bear, and it's not any other animal. It is specifically the lion and the human who are facing each other and are aligned in this axis. And when the Aquarius-Leo axis is activated, humans and lions have work to do. What can possibly unify humans and lion, except the fact that lions is in every symbolism of human civilization, you will see lion, whether it's Sekhmet, whether it's Durga, whether it's flags. Lions are everywhere because lions and human are on top of the food chain. They are on top of the pyramid, so to speak. And what is the misinterpretation is that if you are on top of the pyramid, you're not the one who is being served. You don't have more slaves. Being on top of the pyramid means you have a greater responsibility and you are the custodian of this place. So human and lion have a role in bringing order to this planet. Now, lion represents the heart, Aquarius represents the mind, and they need each other. If you have mind and spirit without heart, and if you have heart without mind, there's an imbalance that can lead to consequences. But what is the message of them united? That's what I want to really emphasize, is that the shift from Pisces, Virgo to Leo-Aquarius is that we are now becoming the leaders on this planet. And this means we have the responsibility it's not God who's going to fix our mistakes. We can't just say, I'm renouncing my material life and I'm surrendering to a higher God anymore. I'm not going to heaven. I have to bring heaven down to earth. I have to do it in a way that's responsible through my leadership. So I'm becoming the custodian. So the message of the Leo-Aquarius is that no, there's nowhere to run. There's no afterlife to rely on. Even if you are reincarnating, you need to bring this enlightened world, this enlightened civilization down here. And that's your test. And that is why these times are so critical. I will just add one more thing, is that Leo is fire. Fire is the only element out of air, earth, and water that is not immediately available. You have oxygen, you have earth on your feet, you have water in the ocean and rain, but fire, the sun, was only, if you follow the mythology, was only granted to humanity at a much later stage. Because there was a fear that if humanity has the gift of fire, it is a risk of misusing it. And that is the role of the lion in this cosmology. The keepers of the flame, the keepers of the fire. Because when you have fire, you have creation. And you're not just a passive human being, you are a leader. You are giving birth. You are co-creator. I hope this makes sense. If you have questions, and if Linda, you'd like to clarify certain things, let me know.
Well, Maurice, thank you so much. I mean, this is it is a wealth of knowledge you've handed over in a very short time. All of it is highly relevant. For many, it might be difficult to follow the depth. I would just like to point out the moon is rising right now. Magnificent moon. I'm going to see if you can see it, everyone. You saw the sun setting. There's the moon rising. The moon rose as the sun set, because it's the full moon, at an eclipse with alignment with Sirius. So I'm going to attempt to summarize what Maurice has so eloquently explained for us. Maurice started by explaining the day we're on right now, which is a critical day of alignment of heavenly bodies, Earth, Moon, Sun, Star. And alignment through an eclipse is a time when we are open to the higher order. We cannot control our events through our human activities alone. So consequences happen at the time of an eclipse that are of a divine order. And this particular eclipse, aligning with Sirius, the blue star, the birth star, associated with life on this planet and the bringers of enlightenment, specifically the white lions, who are the great luminous ones associated with the pharaohs and pharaoh consciousness of true enlightened leadership. So it's an awesome moment that we unite heart to heart, all of us, at this precise moment, with the flow from source literally flowing, through our bodies as we are vessels, as we stand upright to receive the heavenly plan and anchor it through our footprints on earth. And it's a moment really when we go on to the meditation that will close our time together, a moment of absolute alignment, or in the leadership training, LionHearted Leadership training, A-LION-MENT. Because what the lions do is bring the physical realm into alignment with the metaphysical realm. As Maurice was explaining, the Leo-Aquarius age is an invitation for us to anchor physicality as a sacred heritage, to essentially anchor heaven on earth and recognize, my God, we have paradise on earth. We should be protecting our planet. And that's exactly what the lion does in the ecosystem. The lion as the apex, those of you who don't know what has been proved now ecologically in Yellowstone Park, the wolf restoring all the trophic levels, all the way from the tip of the pyramid all the way down to the bottom of the food chain. The role of the apex, in other words, the role of the leader, is to maintain balance, restore balance, and therefore serve all of creation, passing the flame of continuity on to future generations. So that is what the white lion is here to teach us, is that the role of the apex is to serve. That is predation, and that is the word predate. That was the original contract of the flame being passed on to future generations through the act of predation, which ultimately is a sacred contract, receiving the energy from all the other beings in the ecosystem. And by virtue of having that in the constitution of the white lion, the law, the constitution of the white lion, therefore serving all of creation. So what Maurice was referring to is this exact moment that we're in. What an amazing time to be linking up. And it's for that reason that we've launched the Academy for LionHearted Leadership today online. I'm going to give you the link so that you can sign up to that Academy and equip yourself with the teachings of the white lion that support the birth of true leadership at this time. That's the moment we're in now. Maurice has also been tracking the eclipse moments for more than a decade or two, these eclipse moments that bring radical change because they are moments when divine order is anchored on earth. And they have been on the axis of Leo-Aquarius as this great cycle known as the Great Year. It's a great cycle of 26,000 years, and it is birthing now the Leo-Aquarius age. Each age lasts for around about 2,000 or 2,500 years, and the last age was associated with the birth of Christ, and interestingly, as Maurice was saying, the Pisces Virgo axis, so the birth of Christ and the Virgin, and all that went with that kind of knowledge. The danger of that, Maurice was reminding us, is that there was an idealism through the Pisces age that allowed not only Christian doctrine, but other doctrines to separate from earth, to forget that this is a heavenly inheritance. And now as we go into the Leo-Aquarius age, that kind of illusion is no longer a luxury. We cannot forget that our earth was a gift from the Creator and should be treated as a sacred heritage in the way that the white lions govern. So yes, we're being called to action. I see a message. And what is that action? As I see a message from you saying, what is the message from the heavens at this time? Well, the message is this, that heaven is on earth. Nature is a heavenly realm. How do we return to grace? With the birth of the Leo-Aquarius age, how do we return to grace? How do we learn to truly govern our planet again? What is true leadership? So, so here is the invitation from the White Lions. What they remind us of is that, I promised you that I would give you a little bit of my life story. I know many of you know my story, so this is a very succinct version, and you can always read my books where I detail this. But you might know that I was in the advertising, marketing, modern world, as Jim refers to it. I was, a product of consumerism. I was in the fashion industry in London, Paris, New York, and I returned to my ancestral lands of Africa, these lands, one day, and through circumstances I don't have time to share with you now, but I found myself trapped in the middle of a pride of lions, 24 lions in that pride, trapped, no way out, and they were very angry because they were protecting a sacred birth that was taking place nearby of a white lion cub, a litter of cubs, including a white lion cub. I didn't know that, but they had surrounded me and my life was at risk. And the group I was with started screaming because the lions were so aggressive, and one of us was going to be eaten alive, or more, one or more of us. It could have been me. And then what happened was this miracle of an indigenous medicine woman of the Tsonga people came walking in traditional dress, beads and draped lion garb, decorative lion garb, and on her back she had strapped to her back her little baby grandchild, and she walked through the darkness like this, through the lions, and calmed them and came to my rescue. Now, that event was the turning point in my life. It was the 10th of November, 1991, and I tried to go back to my to my artificial world in the advertising industry, but everything had radically shifted. And I'm sharing this with you because this ignition event of my heart is equivalent to what's happening to all of us now. We are all going through this kind of near-death experience, and may we emerge out of it stronger and ignited with this lion heart. So essentially, that's what happened to me. I went back to the paradigm I had been trapped in and found that these trappings were very difficult to let go, but I couldn't live a lie any longer. I couldn't live an illusion. Reality was back in Africa with this amazing medicine woman who understood the way of nature. And so I returned and I tracked her down. And when I found her, she said, I've been waiting for a long time for you to wake up. And then she started showing me the way of the lion, which might sound miraculous. It might sound impossible. But essentially, when I asked her, how did you do that? How did you walk through the lions? And why did you take your grandchild into the jaws of death? And she said to me, there was no danger. The lions are my family. The grandchild is a symbol of faith that they would not harm me. And there are only two rules in nature: love and respect. If you show nature love and respect, you will never be harmed. Well, those two rules have been the governing principles that have driven my life ever since and have enabled me through those rules. I call that lion-heartedness, that quality of fearlessness inspired by love and respect for the natural world that enables us to transform our human world. It makes us unstoppable. And it was those two rules that drove my efforts from 1991, and then when I returned, to understand what my true purpose was. And I see Jane saying to all the activists, to all the panelists, sacred activism. Yes, it was a mission to serve nature and to recognize that that is actually true leadership. So, you know, you might know that I built up the Global White Lion Protection Trust from nothing. And together with supporters such as yourselves, and raising really millions of dollars, millions of pounds, we raised funds to secure the sacred lands of the White Lions. And then they're roaring right now. You probably can't hear them, but they're roaring right now in connection with all of us. And then we returned the sacred lioness who was born in Bethlehem on Christmas Day back to these lands. She was born in Bethlehem, which in South Africa is a death camp where they breed lions to kill them, having stolen them from the wild. So my life, inspired by the White Lions, walked this line of horror at what was being perpetrated against these sacred animals. Truly a hell on earth has been created by my government and other governing bodies, including CITES, the Convention for the International Trade of Endangered Species, which has legalized the trade of lions, including white lions, as skeletons and bones to be consumed in China and Korea. And we know that that was the source of the coronavirus was through the wet markets of China, traced back probably to pangolin. But we've been warning our government that the consumption of lions will lead to a global pandemic. And we've been doing this over the past couple of decades. So what I'm just contextualizing for you, yes, it's heartbreaking. That is the word. It's heartbreaking. And yet the lions are here to activate our hearts and remind us of this quality of lion-heartedness, that fearlessness inspired by love and respect for our natural world that enables us to transform our human world. It makes us unstoppable. And with that knowledge, I've achieved, you know, these, which some people think are kind of superhuman feats, but it's not. It's true humanity has a heart. The reason that we've created such devastation on our planet is that so many of us have lost our heart connection with nature. And when we restore that, we have the key to restoring our planet. And nature is ready to embrace us back and work with us to achieve that. So in my work with LionHearted Leadership, let me put the link for you so that you can, if you'd like to link up to the LionHearted Leadership training that has specifically launched online today, because we know the potency of this day. I'm going to see if I can just get that link for you. Just give me a moment, it's here. So we specifically have launched this training on this day because we know the power of the Earth star alignments, and we know what this day means. Having the force with us through the eclipse, through the alignment with the stellar plan that is inviting humanity to step up at this time. I'm wondering if this is to all panelists or to the whole group. I don't seem to be able to give it to the whole group.
Do you want me to share the screen? Or?
No, just put it in and I'll share it with the entire group in any case.
Okay, so let's see. Gosh, oh, there too. You'll be able to share it with the whole group. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so here it is. Right. So if we think of this day, then we think of this year, 2020, which Maurice has been explaining, we've been waiting for, because it's such a transformational year. You know, in the LionHearted Leadership Academy, we've been working towards 2020 for 8 or 10 years now. And then over and above the year, there is what we call the great year that is turning at this time. The great year of 26,000 years, turning at this time into the Leo-Aquarius age. And to summarize what Maurice was explaining, Leo being the lion, being the heart, being that flame that holds continuity, that is anchored on earth as part of nature, as part of the ecosystem. And Aquarius being the enlightened human who works with enlightened knowledge, enlightened technology. Technology will have a really important role to play if it is anchored by the heart through the lion consciousness. Then Leo and Aquarius can work in alignment to birth the new human. And this is the forging of the Leonine human that is taking place at this very time. It is more than, I would say, mindfulness. It is more than heartfulness. What is called for now is lion-heartedness, that quality of fearlessness, inspired by love and respect for our natural world that enables us to transform our human world. Maurice also spoke, as did Jim, of systems collapsing. That is the astrology of our time, and they must collapse because they are not sustainable. They are not ecologically sustainable. But what replaces systems when they collapse if we do not have the new leadership rising? And the new leadership recognizes that all systems are based on ecosystems. Before human systems occurred, the codes, the laws of continuity, the laws of leadership, the laws of handing on to future generations was encoded in the ecosystem. So the systems that we establish now have to start with a love and reverence for nature first. We would love to answer some of your questions, and let's see, Maurice, there are some questions there for you.
Well, one thing I will add, maybe some questions will arise from that. When we speak about the flame, and we speak about the flame being granted to us and us becoming co-creators, what we must understand is that the flame must be kept alive, burning. And that's the danger of extinction. We see species going extinct, which is basically the threat to the flame. We may lose the fire that was provided for us if we are not in understanding the intentions and not honoring the lion code. So the lion is the keeper of the flame, but it is also in all of us that need to understand how not just to use the fire, but to pass the torch to the next generation of leaders, of creators, of entrepreneurs. And we see now that as we are losing so much life on Earth and diversity, we see the symbolism there of the fire going out.
Right. And yes, so I think the key really at this moment, and all of us coming together to ask the question, what is the universe not only asking of us, but how is the universe inviting us to find our way through these critical times? And the key is to recognize that the flame is still alive. It is being handed over to us as an opportunity. And that is essentially what the LionHearted Leadership training is about. It's giving us practical ways, practical tools to navigate these times, recognizing that these are Leo-Aquarius times, inviting us to redefine this leadership, and and see it as an opportunity rather than cling on to the old order, which has all but destroyed our planet. So the leadership training, the online training, is immaculately designed. It's actually with a, I designed it over more than a decade of experiencing the lion's message to me. But in handing it over to you, I've had a lot of help with experts in leadership training, in developmental psychology, in online courses. So it's very accessible for you to spark your lion heart and recognize that you actually have the tools to make this change, starting with you. Leadership being a quality that we all hold. And when we hold this lion-hearted quality, we bring about structures that serve our earth, whether we bring about new governing structures, new legal structures, new even philosophical structures. We are capable of transforming our world, starting with igniting our hearts. That's how the transformation happens. And if we go back to the Leo-Aquarius age we're in, the lion is the spark of the heart, but the movement will be a civic community rising movement. That is Aquarius, right, Maurice? The lion being the spark that ignites us in our leadership, but the Aquarian movement indicates that the change will be, these mass activist movements, such as ourselves with Humanity Rising. This is how the change happens. And its signature is in the turning of ages that we're in right now.
And to also, we speak of lion-hearted leadership and opening the heart. And one thing we can immediately experience this is the fact that how do we show this heart-centeredness? The first thing is showing up. It is coming to serve. It is waking up in the morning and standing up and saying, I'm ready. Just as the sun rises where you live, you rise and you are ready to deliver, to create, to do. Because one of the most problematic or the most defeating aspect of this paradigm is not showing up, is giving up. It is saying either I'm not interested, I don't want to be here, or I don't have faith in the process. So part of loving, just like birthing a child, it's a lot of work. It takes your resources. It makes, it changes your body, but yet you show up for your child and you're there every day because you care, because you love. And it's the same thing for life. Are we showing up for life? Are we waking up and ready for our calling? And that's the Leo inspiration. What is your calling? What is your call to action? And that's part of that paradigm.
I see that we really have just 3 minutes before we go on to our closing meditation, which is going to be so beautiful, a meditation for you in the presence of the lions. But just to round things up, Maurice and other inspired faculty members have joined me on site over the years, working with these leadership principles, and together with Ubiquity University, conceptualizing what the lion-hearted leader really looks like. But this is our moment. Right now is the forging of the Leonine human. This corona initiation, even the word, the crown, within it is an invitation for us to recognize from the universe that we are being called to forge a new way. And in very simple, inspired practice and techniques online, I've I've assisted those of us who really want to make a difference to recognize that we have these principles within us. And, you know, the online training has lion-hearted challenges. It also has light-hearted tasks. It is both cognitive and experiential and deeply adventurous, but it's also ceremonial because it returns us to the ceremony that nature loves when we reconnect with what is sacred in our planet. So I really do invite you to sign up specifically because the force is with you at this time. It will be available to sign up in the coming months if you wish to, but this moment has a particular ignition to it, which ensures that your commitment is supported by the cosmic events and invitation for enlightened leadership. I'm going to close. I have probably 2 minutes before we go on to the meditation, and I know that George is preparing to link that up for you. But there are a lot of questions that you've asked, and just briefly going through them in relation to the course. You know, how do I become an integral part of the solution? And the online leadership training is solution based. It's about how to transform your heart into action and how to put your highest vision into action. And you know, what is true leadership for this new paradigm shift? Well, it has to be grounded in the heart. Intelligence has to be grounded in the heart. And if we can align our new technologies with heart-centered commitment to our planet, we have the key to the solution. So, you know, and a question that's often asked of me, is it possible to change our world for the better? Is it not, are we not beyond the tipping point? And the answer is absolutely. The invitation is there right now. And I invite you to take it up. Can small changes lead to seismic shifts? Absolutely, because every aspect of nature and the cosmos is interconnected. When you reignite your heart and hold the truth of that, you are part of a much greater system, a system redesign that is happening simultaneously with those of us that are igniting our hearts around the planet. It's a very, very exciting time to be alive. And the last question I'd like to answer is, where can you make the biggest difference? And the biggest difference you can make is in your greatest heartbreak. As Maurice was saying, you know, many of us have that inconvenient truth that, you know, can we really make a difference? Oh, well, let's not bother. In fact, the greatest difference you can make is in your greatest heartbreak, as Andrew Harvey reminds us, because that is the healing of the broken heart, the wounded healer that understands what is important in saving. So, Maurice, a last word before we hand over and go into our meditation, and let the lions have the final word.
Thank you so much. And my suggestion also in this time where there's so much going on and we are all tested is to remember those alignment, to recalibrate yourself, come back to meditation, come back to spirit, and remember that your heart will naturally open when you connect the higher world with this world, with the lower chakras. And that is part of what the lion are doing with their presence. And my own experience, having seen the white lion, there is something about their ability to look into the heavens, even in the middle of the day, you'll see them look up. And at the same time, being so determined and present. So in gratitude, I really inspire you to join this program, to make a difference, to be part of something that enlightens our consciousness, and that will have rippling effects.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you on the LionHearted Leadership training course and seeding the future leadership now.
Thank you so much. Looking forward, absolutely.
So checking with you, George, are you ready to go with our meditation?
Ready to go. I'm showing it now.
Wherever we are on the globe, the sun is rising. The sun waits for no man. It waits for no woman. The sun is the heart of the solar system. The sun connects with our hearts. And the key to this sacred practice is to recognize and receive where our resources come from, the flow from source. We receive our resources direct from source, from the sun to the heart, the lion heart. So start by making sure that your root and your crown chakras are perfectly in alignment. In English, we call that A-LION-MENT. Okay. Get comfortable. And now, with a gentle breath, drop into your hearts and listen to that double heartbeat that marks time on our planet. Du-doof, du-doof, du-doof. That is the timekeeper, the golden compass of the lion heart. So listen to your heart and start breathing with your heart, remembering that this was the first organ that sparked into life in the fetus, in the womb. This is the first and primary organ of the body. So take a deep breath and start breathing with your heart. Breathe in the gold of the sun and release anything that is not of the gold. Breathe in the gold of dawn and release any darkness, any heaviness, back into the ecosystem as you breathe in the gold. So you breathe in the gold deep down into your heart and you release any pain, any anger, any heaviness, any darkness, any doubt, despair, disenchantment, disillusionment, self-doubt, all those heavy feelings within the heart and the system, release them out into the ecosystem, the great mother that echoes with the primordial roar of nature. Recognize that your heart is broken. Any true leader today works with a broken heart. There is so much to be heartbroken about. The cruelty, the destruction of our planet. Recognize the truth that the lion heart is broken. And now, as you breathe in the gold, start to mend those cracks in your heart. Like a golden vessel, a golden compass, or a golden chalice, start filling your heart with the gold. As you breathe in the gold and breathe out anything that is not of the gold. And now visualize the golden chalice of your heart filling. All the cracks are healed. It's filling to fulfillment, to overflowing. The chalice flows over. And from your heart as it beats, that double heartbeat, visualize it flowing into the veins and the arteries of your body. Every single vein and artery is flowing with the golden lava of the golden sun that is held by your lion heart. And track its flow, this lava flow from source through the sun to the heart that you are holding at your core of your courage, at the core of your courage. Track the flow of this lava, and anywhere in your veins or arteries where there may be an attempt to block the golden flow, simply melt it with a molten gold direct from source. And now your entire body is flowing with the gold. And with your body flowing through all its seams and rivers, arteries and veins, now we can begin to breathe with our lungs. So take a deep breath in and breathe the love back into your lungs, the love from the ecosystem. Every animal, every species, every plant, every creature, every sentient being in the ecosystem is giving. We, as lion-hearted leaders, if we are truly to take up our place again at the tip of the pyramid of life, need to learn how to give with our hearts. And so receive with your breath the breath of the spark of life from the ecosystem, and release out with the breath anything that is dark or heavy, that is not of this light. But this time, recognize that you are a transformer. You are a change agent. When you work with lion-heartedness, that quality of fearlessness, inspired by love and respect for the natural world that enables us to change our human world, you are a transformer. And so transform this breath from the ecosystem. As you release back, transform your breath into sparkle of gold. So let's recognize that our lungs are inverted trees of life. There are trunks, there are branches, there are smaller branches, there are even smaller branches, then there are twigs, then there are leaves, capillaries, cells, molecules, particles, subatomic particles. As you breathe in the spark of the oxygen of life from the trees of life all around this planet, take it into your system, receive the gift from the ecosystem, and now as you release back, realize you are part of the great cycle of life. You are giving carbon back. That is your stellar signature. Carbon comes from the stars. You are giving it back to this great system that converts it back through the spark of the sun into oxygen. So now recognize the cycle of your life, where you are part of the ecosystem that is echoing deep within your lion heart. Receive the spark of oxygen and give out anything that is heavy or dark. Track any dark or dense cell in your body now vibrating with the frequency of sunlight, and release it back. But as you release that carbon back, transform it into light. So you are receiving light and you are giving light. You are receiving light and you are giving light. You are receiving the gifts of light, of gold, of life on this planet. And you are giving back in the deepest sense of gratitude and not only consciousness, but conscience, co-sentience. Continue this great cycle as your body now is vibrating at every single subatomic particle level with the frequency of life and gold. You are more than your physical body. You are your light body, that auric field, that biofield that extends in a vast auric aura around you. And continue breathing in and out with your heart and your lungs until the equality of that breath, that equalizing of giving and receiving. You receive the spark of gold and you release anything that is not of gold, but you convert it back into the spark before you breathe it back into the ecosystem. You are breathing in gold and you are breathing out gold. You are a light body. Your heart is echoing with the ecosystem. And now, with that echoing double heartbeat, let us do service for the whole planet. Visualize your golden heart beating with the double heartbeat, and like ripples on a golden pond now, allow the gold to ripple out through the ecosystem of your life. Your room, your building, your country. See the lava flows through the governments, dissolving any darkness, any heaviness, any attempt to stand in the way of the great way. See the lava flows as the ripples on this golden pond expand further out and out still, across the lands that you inhabit, across the continent that you inhabit, across the oceans of Mother Ocean, across the land masses, echoing out through all land masses and all ocean masses, the ripples on the golden pond as your heartbeat with its double heartbeat extends the gold around the planet. And recognize now that there are points of light that are doing the same at this very time. And we now create a network of light. Like star sparkles on the ripples of this golden pond around the planet, such that all the oceans, all the land is benefiting from this auric field, from our united, unified heart field. And now reach up to receive your resources direct from source of love, light and truth. Love that is unconditional, light that is eternal, truth that is absolute. And bring this golden trine down to your heart. How amazing is that? Just as we are concluding our sacred practice, you can hear the lions roaring on the distant horizon. Listen. Listen with your hearts. Let it echo in your hearts, the echo of the ecosystem. Isn't that amazing? As the sun rises, the lion roars. Let that be a blessing to you. At the dawn of the Leo-Aquarius age, your unique signature is to serve nature in whatever way you choose to do. That is true lion-hearted leadership. My heart unites with yours. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone. George, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for participating. I hope that that continues to echo always in your hearts. Thank you. And I hope you've got the link if you'd like to link up to do the training. There is no greater moment than the present.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I think the bottom of the hearts of everyone who's been present for your and Maurice's presentation. And it underscores for me probably the most important practice we can all be engaging in right now, and that is heart coherence. The more we can just pause, as I've been doing for the last 15 minutes, and listening to your own heartbeat and filling it with golden light and then sending it out to everyone in the world. I can't think of a more profound and important way to usher in the Leo-Aquarian age. So I feel deeply humbled by your presence. Maurice, your exposition on the astrological significance of our time was brilliant. And I think all of us are empowered on this very special day when the moon and the sun and the stars are aligned in a very, very potent way. So thank you, Linda. Thank you all so much. And tomorrow we meet again between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock p.m. Central European time. And tomorrow we're going to delve in with open, gold-filled hearts into probably the most pernicious contributor to our current global crisis, and that is neoliberal capitalism. Yeah. And we're going to do it with a brilliant lawyer from Silicon Valley who has been hugely successful as a lawyer, as a venture capitalist, and saw what he was participating in and has dedicated his life now, like Linda, caught up in modernity, having an epiphanal experience like Saul on the way to Damascus, and reoriented his life and wants to bring together a panel of people who will expound on how we can reshape our whole entire economic system, and in particular, the capitalist model of neoliberalism. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow, again, live on Zoom and our Facebook page and Awake TV as we continue Humanity Rising.
Thanks for showing up every day.
It's my pleasure.
It's such a privilege. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Blessings.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and give those lions a hug.
Hard hug for sure.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Lots of love, everyone. Strength to you all.